Greetings, nerd. Greetings, nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
I am doing very well, Sarah. Happy to be with you this evening. I hate that we missed our recording last week, but I'm back and ready to talk.
Nothing happened last week. Let's all just say, due to personal issues, we couldn't make it work, but thank God it was that week, because you and I were even talking. We're like, do we just try? But there's nothing going on for some reason. And then yesterday was like a big dump of crap.
Totally. It's just like, okay, I think they decided to give us a little breather, because I know the week prior there was quite a few things that were released, and and here we are. We had quite the Monday with news, and even some things that have even carried over to today with one of the shows.
Yeah, and that's gonna start us off, because it has been announced that Oscar Isaac got cast as Marc Spector in Moon Knight on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I was super. I was really excited to see that casting, because I know I saw some like rumors. I think David Diggs, I think was
Oh,
it was also considered. I think at least that's what the rumor mill was going. And then one other person too. I'm blanking on his name, but when I saw Oscar Isaac, what's that?
Was it Shia?
I believe. No, it was. Gosh, I think
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because they didn't get cast. So.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Oscar got
exactly.
Which is an interesting choice, in my opinion, because Oscar Isaac, a lot of us know him, but if you look at his filmography, he has mainly been in indie movies, and then every now and then he'll do a Star Wars. He'll attempt to do an X-Men, even though Apocalypse doesn't really count. And now all of a sudden he's back, and he's in this going to be the lead on this show for Moon Knight. And so I like Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
Okay. Emphasis on the actor.
Yeah.
I don't know though if I wouldn't put him on the same line of a Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans as a actor whose filmography I also am just immediately drawn to. And so maybe this will change that for me, but I'm happy. I guess this is a very satisfactory casting.
Yeah. I agree. And actually, given how all the things that sort of unfolded from the Star Wars universe and stuff, and and of course all these folks are owned by the big parent company, Disney. But it's good to know that, for one, talent will trump a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and two, I think you're right as far as his filmography. He has done a lot of indie stuff, but he also it's been a very diverse one. So so we know he has the range to be able to carry this off. Plus, he's been in a tentpole type of trip system, be it the Lucas, the Star Wars universe, but now coming over to the MCU. He can, he's a known name. He has, even though he didn't have much to work with in another big franchise with Star Wars, like in Star Wars, he does have that charisma, and he does, because given Moon Knight has various personas. I mean, there's the Marc Spector, there's also Jake Lockley, and then Steve Grant, who's the flamboyant playboy, and of course, all of them are basically channeling the Egyptian god Khonshu. So, so because he has that diverse filmography, as you noted, I think that also leads gravitas to the role.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what they need right now. I mean, they got this casting news right on the heels of Tatiana Maslany denying reports that she's She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I just, that was the most random thing, and that happened last week, right?
It happened on the day after or so we recorded our last podcast, and
Okay.
yeah, so it's a little old, but I felt it's important to keep it on the rundown. And I'm glad you agreed because it was one of those things. I guess she was like interviewed by Canadian
Hmm.
newspaper, and I think she was doing some uh, public you know, publicity and for I think some indigenous people calls or something like that in Canada, if I recall. But in any event, she basically was like, "No, I that's just she denied it," which is so odd given that the producer of the show and Mark Ruffalo also were both like, "Hey, welcome aboard" and stuff. So I don't know if it was just who knows. I mean, maybe negotiations fell apart, and there just hasn't been official confirmation or denial from Marvel or Disney Plus on the casting falling through. But I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Now, granted, I do appreciate, because She-Hulk, own story, new character, etc. However, if you were to give me a choice of what would I want to see first, Moon Knight. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking that when they made that original announcement
Oh yeah.
back at Comic Con.
Hmm.
So I'm glad like She-Hulk, we can have these weird fumbles. If the word Hulk is in the title, it's gonna be weird.
Yeah.
there's gonna be there's gonna be some hits, there's gonna be some misses, there's gonna be some recasting. For all we know, Tatiana will be She-Hulk for the first season and then recasted for the second.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
but we will get Moonlight in all of his glory. And it has also been announced on top of it to like add further confirmation this is happening sooner rather than later. The director for the series, Mohamed Died, Died,
Yeah.
Died.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what has he done recently?
I think from what I read, it was a Clash, which was a film that was an official selection at the 2016 Cannes Film Festival.
Uh,
Uh, yeah, I'm not familiar with his work to be honest. Beyond when I read the article about his selection as director, but he also apparently did. He also directed a film called Cairo 678, which again, not familiar with his work, but again, they are as you rightly noted, this project's moving forward. If they're hiring directors, got the lead cast. I mean, we could easily see this show going into production. I would think early next year.
we're gonna see this before we see the Batman.
Yeah, most likely. Most likely.
Which breaks my heart in so many little pieces. But speaking about that, we are getting momentum and build up as if we needed it, Will, as
Yeah,
if we needed it for Batwoman season 2, but really season 1 for Javicia. And
yeah,
she had a shot this week where they released her in all of her Batwoman glory,
yeah.
and I'm not surprised that the picture was fucking awesome.
It was. It was. I mean, damn, that was just. Ooh, when I saw that drop yesterday, I was like, damn, and wow, that's so dope. I mean, I thought back to what she said at DC Fandom, where she said that her Batwoman would be reflective of who she is as an African American woman,
Mhm.
and and they did it. I mean, they completely followed up on that. I mean, just just the silhouette. Uh, you got that curly hair. I mean, not that
Yeah.
straight nasty wig that Ruby Rose had to wear. And they are fully embracing Ryan Wilder as who she is as an African American woman and African American Batwoman. So I loved it. I mean, I freely admitted I'm like I was already, we both really enjoyed season one of that show, and it had its growing pains, but I as far as shows, returning shows in the Arrowverse next year, Batwoman is definitely. I'm very excited for its return.
Yeah, I growing pains, like it grew maybe half an inch. I know Will struggled to get on board. I was quicker to arrive at my conclusions on that show, but there are still, when I think on season one, vivid images about certain moments in that season that I think are just fascinating. And now that we're talking about DC fandom, I'm reminded of our discussion on the panel and the bits that they did drop, which, you know, Javicia can look as beautiful as ever in that Batwoman suit. But
Yes.
reason why I'm excited is because the showrunner proved in season one she knows what she's doing. She's going to take Ryan, take Javicia, and just build this story the way that they want it to go. And I'm just give it to me now, Will. Give it
Yeah,
to me.
I hear you. Yeah, and
I want it
yeah,
now.
they had the little Vancouver snafus with testing and stuff, but thankfully things are back. Seems like everything is back on go, and shows are being filmed up there with now seems without incident. So yeah, we can't
They're really going
2021 can't
all
get here.
in. They're really going all in on this black and red type
Mhm.
aesthetic with
Yeah,
both Batwoman and Batman,
yeah,
which is interesting because we're used to associating gray, black, and yellow with
mhm.
Batman. So I just, I'm all for it. Let's Javisha and well, no, she's gay, so never mind. Never mind. Moving on
It's
to
okay.
speaking about more red.
Yeah,
More red. We have more red because DC never does something once. It always redoes everything. More on that later. Season 3, DC Titans did release a tease image of Jason Todd as the Red Hood, which was good
yeah.
because Sarah definitely forgot that was a thing.
You secretly love Titans. You know you do.
I no, you remember again. It's funny how all of these announcements were like, yeah, remember in fandom, but the fandom that we eventually did leave, but keep returning to.
Yeah,
I was very excited to have them announce that he was going to make this turn.
yeah,
Um, I just honestly forgot.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there was a lot going on at the end of season two of Titans. With, of course, we did get Nightwing finally, and of course Donna Troy. Spoiler alert: if you haven't watched season two, something Donna passes away, and of course we see Jason going off at the end of season two because he had a falling out with Dick, and which is accurate because there was always the tension because obviously they were both Dick and Jason were wards of Bruce Wayne. So, uh, but I was excited about this too. I guess one thing that I've seen a lot of chatter about with them basically again confirming that Jason's going to be Red Hood in season three is a lot of folks are wondering, is it too early in the story? And I you know I was looking at it more of a looking at it a different way in that will we get the Joker in Titans now?
Oh
Uh,
my
because we did have reference mention of the Joker in season one.
god.
We and we obviously have we do have Bruce Wayne here, and the whole reason why Red Hood came about is because as comic book fans know, Killing Joke, Jason Todd was uh, killed by the Joker.
Mhm.
So, and of course was resurrected in Roswell's Lazarus pit. So, so I'm thinking like, are we gonna get the Joker in season three, or which will how we'll get Jason to turn into the Red Hood. Just,
No.
you don't think so? I mean, they could do it. I mean, they've had Deathstroke now on, like, they ended that crazy, after
Really?
after the crossover. I think all bets are open.
I'm not saying no, that is impossible because okay, let me address a few things that you had to say. The notion it's too soon in the story. I agree with you. It's not too soon in the story. They introduced Bruce Wayne, okay? Talk about jumping the shark.
Exactly.
They did that, I think, in the first season, or was
Yeah,
it the second?
it was the end of the first. Batman appeared, and then we actually had him in the series all throughout the second season, which
Right.
yeah,
And the other thing is, and this is gonna bleed into the next topic. Joker just had an Academy Award winning film based off of it. Now, some people might criticize that's not really a comic book movie. I don't know. But it's still a Joker.
yep,
There's still a lot of homages there. Okay. People who say it's not, they just don't get the joke.
yeah.
Point. And so I really, like I said before, DC never one to fear duplicating itself and becoming redundant. I mean, it's getting to a point, Will, where it's like, okay, we got enough Batman.
Yeah.
We're getting enough Joker. Stop. You have way more characters that you are not using. And this is a very different strategy than Marvel, because Marvel, a lot of those characters most people don't even know about, and yet all of a sudden, I don't know much about Night at all, but for some reason, what I've heard, the snips, I'm very excited. I am also not. It also feels original. It feels fresh.
Yeah, yeah,
Adding Joker this season will just be like, okay, yep,
yeah,
all right.
yeah,
But that being said, I get your point in terms of trying to take these storylines and keep the right amount of the elements the same while being able to connect to non-comic book people. So
yeah. And they could,
it wouldn't surprise me if they did. But
yeah, and they could do it without having him appear on the camera. I mean, we've already had him teased. He's already been mentioned in the series, so it's not like it would be coming out of left field.
right, and it'll definitely be Jared Leto. Actually, that's really what happened recently. It was announced that Jared Leto is appearing in the Snyder Cut, but really it's all a hoax so that he can appear in season 3 of Titans.
Hey, they end up. I think they're both shot. If they're both shot in Toronto, then there you go. They can make it work.
Oh, the tea, the tea, the tea. The Jared Leto thing. It. I mean, Manganiello is one thing
Yeah,
because he was not even a character. He was not. He briefly appeared in one moment.
yep,
But Jared Leto, who anyone who talks about Suicide Squad immediately talks about what happened behind the scenes and with Jared Leto, and you hear all of these things that occurred. And then some of the information that came out after the film was released, and he even kind of pissed over it.
yeah,
And and he's also, man, talk about a guy who likes to double dip. I mean, he's I guess this is all comes about because they delayed Morbius.
I guess. Or I thought that was filmed. It's just been. I thought it was done. I don't know, but
It is. They were
yeah,
supposed to release it this summer,
that's
and
right.
then it
That's
got
right. Yeah,
delayed.
yeah. Completely. Yeah. Talk about forgetting things. Yeah. Yeah. I
Oh,
saw.
don't worry, it wasn't that horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Yeah. When I saw that news about him and being released in the Snyder Cut, it was a couple. I had a couple thoughts. One, you know, I thought these were just supposed to be just some reshoots here and there. The film was, touch just need to be some cleaned up as far as the special effects. Oh, at this point, they're just filming a whole new film. I mean, bringing all
Yes.
these people back,
Mhm.
Amber Heard showing up, you know, at this juncture, it'll be like 20% of what we saw in the theatrical cut, and then 80% new stuff. The way this thing's going, because I think the budget's like actually gone up to around 70 million or something like that now.
Yeah. Yeah. This should not be called the Snyder Cut.
No,
It really shouldn't, because it is a new movie.
it really, at this point, it sounds like it really is going to be. I mean, you don't bring Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill and everyone back just for I'm sure Jason Momoa is going to like pop in there. Some
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're getting their money's worth. They're
yeah,
like, "Oh, we'll do a cut, except you have to rewrite the entire movie, bring back characters from these other movies, really make it a connected universe, so then we can explode it and do what we wanted to do all along."
yeah, exactly.
Oh, classic DC, which is crazy because what, we're already almost a half hour into our show tonight, and
Yeah,
we still got more DC news. It's like
yeah,
DC knew Marvel was gonna drop their Moon Knight news, so they're like, we're gonna get as much as we can.
yeah.
Because and it a lot of it is TV, but some of it is film. And to go back to TV for a moment, DC Stargirl did announce some casting news for season 2. Nick Tarby will play the series' regular role as Eclipso, and Jonathan Cake from The Affair will recur as the Shade. Additionally, you put this in here because
I think it's Yasa Pinero.
Yasa
Pin-
Pinero. Hey, I like that. Yasa Pinero will occur as an undisclosed DC character. So she is it a he or she?
she.
She will be Harley Quinn. Um,
Could happen.
Anything's possible, Will.
Anything's possible. Yeah, but of course, with the Eclipso, of course, we were teased with that at the end of season 1, where Cindy had the Blue Diamond, where he's been
Yep.
captured, and then also the other interesting thing about Nick, to bring back your
Mm-hmm.
arrow, Captain Boomerang from was
It was a crossover episode, so I think Flash can take some of that ownership. And wait a second, Boomerang. I'm pretty sure I've seen him in the DCEU too.
yeah,
Interesting.
yep,
This is also something. Did not forget, Will. I as soon as I saw the news Eclipso, I was like, "Yep, I remember the tease. They're delivering. Gonna figure out what the shade is." The characters on Stargirl have some. I don't know if I would use the word interesting, but they rival the Flash with the names.
yeah, they do. Well, remember, because it is the Justice Society of America. So a lot of these old characters, really harken back to the 1930s and early 40s, and during the golden age of comics. So you're going to get these very dated names.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking about Justice Society, The Rock
Yeah,
confirms on his Instagram account that Black Adam will start production in 2021 and a half.
yeah, yes. The
Ah,
Rock, all his was it 500 million Instagram followers. Yeah, he confirmed it. So we shall see. We shall see. Maybe we can, The Rock, and then of course, Tom Holland also, I think, was spotted, going to Atlanta as well to start working on Spider-Man 3. So,
you see that Uncharted pic?
mm,
Oh yeah, I thought it was like I another movie I forgot was a thing in all of this 2020 um, chaos, and then I saw the pic and I was like, okay, Nathan Drake, here we go, here
yeah,
we go.
definitely, definitely,
Oh
yeah,
well. um, Honestly though. So I think that the Uncharted film is very similar to Black Adam. This has been out there for a while,
Yep.
and so seeing that photo, we're like, oh, okay, so they're really doing it. I cannot say for sure, Will, and this will be a test for me. If when you tell me they released an image of Black Adam, like on set and then filming, I'm gonna be like, that's a hoax. That's
Yep.
they're not. That's a different movie.
Yeah.
And maybe even when it's like the trailer, I'm gonna think to myself, "Oh, that's a fan made edit."
It's totally. It's totally. Yeah. Yeah. This thing. Yeah. It's basically whenever we can go back to theaters, that's when I'll actually believe it. When I can actually like buy my ticket to see this film because it's like the holy grail as far as like yeah it's this mythical thing that's out there that we may get one day.
It's gonna be really sad if it bombs.
I don't think it's gonna bomb. Mr. Rock, he doesn't make bombs. I mean, just by
Whoa, whoa,
well,
whoa, whoa! Skyscraper. A few other movies that I don't remember the title to. He has made some bombs,
I mean now let's well
but it's The
the
Rock
box
plus
office. Yeah,
ET. I get it. I get your point, but
I
you
mean,
better take a look at that filmography before you say he doesn't make bombs.
well, what I mean by that more, I mean financially they make money. Now I won't say they're artistically like worth anything, but yeah, but I mean he's a box office draw.
I think somebody has Jumanji memory and is
Yeah,
forgetting about some of Rock films, but we'll
yeah.
visit that on a later date. Note to self. Michael B. Jordan will produce the new Static Shock film through his Outlier Society production banner with the goal of creating a new universe of black superhero content. Really excited to hear about this news. Michael B. Jordan, love him. He love him ever since he was on The Wire. And I like that. What do you think the odds are that knowing that they announced he is going to be the producer of the film, do you think he's going to be the producer type to put himself into the movie, or is producing it enough?
I think he will reserve the right to put himself in there. I'll tell it maybe, but I don't know if he'll be like pulling like a Tyler Perry or anything. Uh,
Such
but
a lawyer. He will reserve the right.
but I think he's probably just gonna. It would surprise me if he is in Static Shock. I think he'll actually stay on the sidelines and just be the producer for this particular project. But I think with the production company that he has, and if for example they wanted to, make a big screen version of, let's say, a Black Lightning or other characters that are out there, he could or an original character, that I can see him maybe stepping in front of the
Yeah. Yeah. Save it for the sequel, Jordan. Save it for the sequel.
camera.
Save yourself for the sequel.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I I
yeah,
like it.
yeah.
I think it's gonna open some doors, and I have more faith now that this movie will get made than Black Adam will, but whatever.
Yeah. Another thing from DC fandom. I mean, that was whenever they announced that news that weekend. Folks are
Yeah.
super excited about that news, and yeah, and it's just great to see a character like that come back and the whole line uh, get reborn. I mean, I think they have so many options they can go there.
So many options, so many options. Will also wanted me to mention that Netflix is developing an Assassin's Creed live action TV series because the movie made so much in box office.
Yeah,
Any
yeah, okay, yeah. You got jokes tonight. Yeah.
I I I didn't even hear about that piece of news.
I saw it briefly this morning, and I was like, "Oh." Okay. And then, I mean, there's nothing other than Netflix is like going to be developing this, and maybe Netflix is like, oh, we see a space here with creating content out of video game films. I mean, you know, like i.e. The Witcher.
Mhm.
Maybe I think they're trying to enter, go in that space. So
Yeah.
it's just imagine them, they'll have a Laura Croft film before the next thing you know.
Please don't. Please do not, Netflix, repeat the mistakes of Warner Brothers and DCU. Please pick original characters, new characters, fresh characters
Yeah.
from that platform. Thank you very much. But I would not mind you trying to produce a series about Mario.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I
Yeah.
mean, however, The Witcher, like I didn't even really knew that was based on a video game for the longest time. And I watched it and I don't think they're going to be able to meet it because Witcher is such a unique piece of television. It is a experience and just something different. Man, that would have been a great segue into our TV discussion. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we do have to talk about Schmoedown.
Yep.
Schmoedown.
Let's get
I
ready.
just
Yeah.
they wrapped up their singles tournament.
Yeah.
I was rooting for the kid. I was rooting for the kid. The kid lost, and then we had this other showdown between Corruption and Roxy, the rock stars,
Yeah.
Snyder and Adam Collins. Adam Collins is gonna get a belt by the end of the year.
Oh yeah. Totally. Totally.
I think Dan is mad about losing the team's belt, but Dan, I think you're gonna meet your match.
I think so.
And I kind of don't like it because I like underdogs and but at the same time I'm tired of Dan having the belt, so I'm not mad. I'm neutral. I'm neutral.
Yeah. Well, Adam, he was just just came out of nowhere. So, I mean, was he like a free agent, and then was part of corrupt, brought on corruption, and like what it's like what 6-0 or something like that. 5-0. I mean, he's just been a tear in the tournament. Just taking out brand, name and former champs along the way. So, I really enjoyed the finals match with the singles between him and Snyder. I mean, it was just it was uh very 5 rounds of just really solid competition. What you would want in a finals uh, match, and yeah, and then of course on the team side with Shazam and Corruption. Ooh, with the
It was spoiled for me. It
oh,
was
oh, I'm sorry.
spoiled for me. I inadvertently started watching backstage. I had like a lapse of judgment. I don't know what happened and then it
Yeah,
was spoiled for me.
dang it.
But I do agree with you. I think I prefer the teams match over the singles match
Yeah,
and that's just because I think that Collins versus the kid was better because they went into overtime.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's how competitive that match. So I
yeah,
was kind of underwhelmed by the fight that Snyder put up.
yeah,
The teams match, uh, corruption is such a weird faction in this whole show because a part of us, or at least for me, I'm like 50-50. I can root for them, but I can also despise them.
hmm
And I was rooting obviously for Shazam, not because of Bibbs, but because of my love for the kid.
the kid. Yeah,
And so I'm happy, but it also breaks my heart every time I just see somebody kind of fumble and just completely lose it.
yeah, yeah. I know yeah, especially because whenever that match, the team's championship started, Kalinowski was just like just gagging. or
Hmm.
early in those early questions, and it just put the team into a hole. But then when it got to the final round and still had a chance, um,
Hmm.
it that finish was just really. I was like, man, they actually may pull this off. They could they
Right.
could they could pull it off, and but obviously Shazam won, and happy for Coy and the quirky mercs. I mean, they've sort of been that faction that sort of all the attention goes, and rightfully so, is going to corruption and swag.
Oh
But
yeah.
uh, they've been kind of hanging around there, and doing quietly doing some damage throughout the tournament as well.
Well, I like the post interview and how they explain that Shazam isn't a brand new team. The Kid and Bibiani are not new players, but they're also players who Bibbs has won the title once,
Mhm.
the singles once,
Yeah,
never won teams. And this is the first title for the Kid, even though everyone knows he's brilliant.
yeah,
So so they earned it. And
yeah,
this was goes back to my whole rant about Collins. It's like, okay, I get you're really good at this game, but I like to see the journey at the
yeah,
same time. Like we're gonna go and fall back again, and that's the same thing with corruption. Corruption. This is their second time, and for some reason they can't defend the titles. And just I think what also added to that was their season is over.
mhm,
That's it. There's no tournament for them. There's no second chance for them. They're done. They both chances lost in the singles tournament, I think
yeah,
broke a lot of people's hearts.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right about that.
Oh wait, I forgot. Chance his season is not over because he will be in the spectacular going up against probably the most despised character right now on the show.
Who's he going up against?
Chandru,
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
who
yeah.
apparently disrespected Rachel Cushing during that weird impromptu um, discussion at the very end of the post interviews. I don't
Huh,
know.
I missed that.
They'll be talking about it on backstage, apparently.
I have not watched a single episode of Backstage. So,
I go back and forth on it.
yeah,
I think I'm starting to just prefer Inner Geekdom over backstage, but
yeah,
I do appreciate the attempt at character on that show.
yeah.
um, all right. So we do have a few things to talk about in terms of things we've been watching. Apparently, all I'm doing these days is just watching stuff. I finished Lovecraft Country, season one. Will
Okay.
um,
Still haven't started.
I can't wait for you to start.
Okay.
I think that you're gonna appreciate it more than me. I think you're gonna like it a little bit more than me. The season finale, um, they picked the perfect ending. They really did it. Like it's not on par with Watchmen season finale, but like what show is. However, I think the last few episodes, I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of falling. Oh, they're bringing it back. Oh, okay. And then the season finale, I was like, okay, yeah, they did it. They completely closed the loop. They did everything you want a finale to do. Really curious as to see what the second season will be, and what choices they're going to make due to some of the things that happened in season one. Um, if you haven't watched this show, if you are on the fence about it, try. Um, now, my parents started watching this, right?
Okay. How's mom and dad?
Oddly enough, they got through the first episode just like I did. They stopped watching during the second episode, just like I did. So it I I don't know really. I think it is a show you have to persevere
Okay.
um and really adjust to because it is very different than anything else on TV right now.
Right. Well, yeah, yeah. And I know several things are popping up that, but I do hope to get to this particular show because I remember way back when it first premiered, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna check this out, Sarah," and then I just never did.
Yeah, it was on my list of that too because I kept
Yeah,
hearing about it and
yeah,
then I wanted my brother to shut up, so I just said, "Fine, I'll watch it." And then I stopped and then I returned because I was done. I also kept keep hearing about the vow, so I decided to check the vow out. I think I finished it. It's 9 episodes in 2.5 days,
wow,
maybe.
wow.
I did do a lot of skipping.
Okay.
I did do a lot of skipping. I did watch majority of it,
Now, is this the
but
s- now is this the one with the sex cult or
yes, it is
okay,
exactly the one with the sex cult. However, takes them a while to get there.
okay, okay,
it's, it's it's very it's very and this goes into my final one because I checked out the comedy show, Comedy Store, a documentary series too,
okay,
and they take very different approaches to how they tell these stories because the vow presents you with three different members of Nexium, and then you follow how they get out of it, and so it goes back and forth between these three characters and really just two characters who, why am I saying characters, they're real people.
yeah.
This really did happen.
Now, now was
But you see their journeys
yeah,
through um being invited into Nexium and then
mhm,
how they got out.
right. Now is this the one where the actress from
Yes,
Smallville? Yeah, yeah,
actresses from
that's right.
Small.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Kristen Curl, her face pops up in some of the video.
huh, really? Huh,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
huh,
But it's clear she wants no affiliation, doesn't want anything to do with it. Is left for a reason. They even talk about it. They talk about how some actresses from Battlestar Galactica, not Katie Sackhoff,
mhm,
others were involved in it, and really how, and specifically with the people they follow, they are semi-responsible for technically bringing Hollywood into Nexium.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Huh,
it really they they do a good job in explaining how this stuff happens,
okay,
what the manipulation is, why it goes on for so long, and then what happens when you figure out that everything you've been told is a lie, and the fallout and getting out, and then how they were able to find a way to take down the leader, who just got sentenced to 120 years in prison.
wow,
Which now, they do explore some dark stuff, some pretty fucked up stuff. Honestly, though, when I hear the word sex cult, that sounds a lot more scandalous and a lot more fucked up than what was presented. And I
really,
think this is why it's getting a second season because I
uh,
think what they show is really the tip of the iceberg.
really,
Yeah,
really. So,
especially with that sentencing and some of the reasons why he was sentenced to so long in prison. He did a lot more fucked up shit.
so was it like some of the like false? Was it like grooming and false imprisonment kind of things, or like, or I mean, because I mean, I've heard about this thing, but I really haven't like spent much time learning some gory details about it. And maybe I should
It,
watch the documentary. But
yeah, I think you should. Um, there's grooming, and I've actually seen some of the episodes twice because after I finished it, I started watching it with my mom, and it was interesting to rewatch it because I saw the manipulation more so the second time around
Okay.
because I understood what happened because I'd seen the entire season, and they like build it. They 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 and this is why I think I got so sucked into it, is because they were really committed to telling a story, and to say like, no, this is fine, these are reasonable people, they had some insecurities, they wanted to fix it, they got drawn in, and then you start to hear about some dirty stuff, and then everything kind of falls apart, and I yeah, I think it's a very, it's almost educational
Huh. Okay. Okay.
because
Well.
of what they say in terms of how cults work and the
Mhm.
psychological aspect of it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I know this is an HBO documentary, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, because I know they were very, whenever they have their documentaries like this, they really do a superb job of, as you were just saying, showing how, especially with these types of cults and other types of organizations, really weave their way into people's lives and manipulate them into doing the things that they end up doing.
Yeah, clear brainwashing. Clear and yeah, it's very fascinating.
Huh.
And I was surprised by how much I actually would I would skip, and then something would strike me and I'd be like, oh wait, that's interesting. Um so I like that, which is different from the Comedy Store, which I think is currently on Showtime, which is a documentary series about the Comedy Store in LA. And it's not all out there. They're releasing an episode weekly.
Okay.
I I've watched all the episodes. My problem with the show is they jump back and forth way too much. Way too much. There's
Uh,
something about the structure that is really annoying, because you when you go into the show, you really think they're going to clearly say this is what happened when it first started, and that's what the whole episode is going to be about. But and they do that and then immediately divert to present day. And I'm like, "Whoa, wait a second." And then they go back and I'm like, "Whoa, stop doing it. Like tell a consistent story." However, why I continue to watch it and what it is does a good job of doing is when you hear from these comics their experience, who they interacted, what happened. It's just like watching an episode of Schmoedown.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
And if you know these comics or are familiar with their names and their reputations, I mean, after an interview with Freddie Prince Jr., I thought I understood more about his father, but this show in the very first episode does a very sheds even more light on Freddie Prince and what happened to him,
Huh.
and everything, which was good. I wish they really just stuck with telling those stories in a more cohesive way rather than constantly in this transition of this was then but this is now, and just moving back and forth. It really should be like a starting point when Mitzi gets the club, and then build up to present day by the end of the season.
Okay. Huh. Huh. Interesting.
So that's what I've been mainly watching, Will. I
Nice.
know that you have been very busy lately,
Yeah.
but you always manage to find a way to make sure that your fandom and allegiance remains
Yes.
intact.
It does. It does. And of course, what she's mentioning is Star Trek Discovery.
Cool. Cool.
Of course, of course. Yeah, so Star Trek Discovery premiered 2 weeks ago now. Actually, the third season, and just to reset things for folks who have been interested in the show or curious about the show. So it's set in between the time period between Star Trek Enterprise, and Star Trek the original series, which was the Kirk, Spock, McCoy, etc. And so season first two seasons, focused on that. Then they at the end, spoiler alert, at the end of season two, they end up doing a time jump, literally, to almost 1,000 years into the future. So now, start the crew of the Starship Discovery are well. The first episode, we see our protagonists, Michael Burnham, on this get into a new in a new time period. David Ajala, who actually folks probably remember him, who was on Supergirl actually, and some other items shows as well. Is also very key regular for this third season. But I'm not going to spoil too much beyond I think what's been out there as far as the promotional materials. The Federation, as we know it, is no longer there. And I will say, whenever I was watching the first two episodes of the new season and thinking about some of the things that happened in Star Trek Picard, I don't know if they're going to do some cross bleeding over it from Picard into Discovery, but some of the themes that were happening in Star Trek Picard, I see echoes of it in season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, and so it'll be interesting to see if my suspicions on that are picked up or not whenever they get into what's going on with the Federation, Starfleet, all that in the 3100s, I think is where they're at now. So yeah, I like the show so far. It's it still has characters from canon, but the thing is now they are free to break from established canon because they're so far ahead in the future that they can really tell some original stories without worrying about messing up any timelines that have been established in the show. So it's off to a good start. And then another show that has become a must watch for me here lately is The Right Stuff on Disney Plus. I know we had talked about it a couple weeks ago when it had premiered, and I think we're at episode 4 now, and it's a we were talking about how it differed from the film the first time I had did a mini review on it, and as this show has unfolded, I'm really liking some of the storylines that they have. That they're exploring in this series that wasn't addressed in the film. So it's really establishing itself as its own independent entity as far as a piece of entertainment, which and it really and I think that they're to be commended for doing that instead of just trying to parrot what was done by the film, and we're seeing different sides of the astronauts, and they're dealing with all the failures that NASA had at the very early stages of the space program, where the Russians were kicking their tails as far as the Soviet Union was getting people and satellites and other things up faster than us, and some of those dynamics that were going on, and also really exploring a little bit deeper in the history of rocketry and the operation that brought all the German scientists over. I think it wasn't Snowflake, but I'm blanking on the name now. But basically, what's that?
I just said such a nerd.
Yeah. But I mean, but again, this really takes some good departures from the film, It's been a long time since I read the book. The only thing I still do miss though is I wish they did somehow fit in Chuck Yeager, but
I I am not familiar with the book, not familiar with the film. I know scandalous, but there is an age difference between me and Will. Um, but watching the TV series, still very, I don't know. It, I'm still waiting for a big moment. I really think Patrick J. Adams was miscast, because I don't think that I'm supposed to despise John Glenn as much as I do, or just I'm bored by his presence whenever
yeah,
he's on screen.
yeah,
It's really Jake McDormand who is the reason why I continue to watch, because I'm very fascinated by his character and his performance.
mm,
Colin too, but here's my thing with Colin. Hook. Okay.
yeah,
There was once a time I watched a show, might have been called Once Upon a Time, might have introduced Colin to the Hollywood sector, and it's really hard
yeah,
because he just you see glimpses of edge and then they immediately take it away, and I'm like, no, let him be Hook. So it's a very hard. I'm like, man, why can't they just cast him as John Glenn? But whatever,
yeah,
it happened. And I agree though. I continue to watch it because it's doing enough where and the performances are enough, because it's very much an ensemble,
hmm
which I think is good. Um, where I'm like, okay, I want to see how this unfolds. I want to see what happens. I think the writing wise, from just a not a historic nerdy perspective like someone, but from a artistic perspective, um, I think they made a right choice to hooking us in the very first episode with that ending, that with that confrontation between John and I keep and Shepard, and and that's what's driving me. I want to know the events that led up to that.
yep,
You,
yep,
you start the show off with a mystery. Most people will see it through to just figure out why that occurred.
exactly. Yep, you're right, and that's honestly that's one of the things that is keeping me on board. And I agree with you about Patrick Adams, his portrayal of John Glenn. It's I mean, yes, we get it. That he's a politician. I mean, we're seeing that aspect of it. He was already a celebrity uh, whenever he was selected to go to the program. But there was also some other moments too in the show where he had the same moral choice that was that the other astronauts were confronted with, and how he dealt with that situation versus say some of the others was um,
But it's not even
yeah,
those moments. Those are
yeah,
character beats. I
yeah,
just feel like whenever he's on screen, it's like he's a freaking mannequin.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
John Glenn. I go here.
Well, there's
Yeah,
that too.
don't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
believe religion. I'm
yeah,
just like, okay.
there is
and,
that too.
and they dyed his hair, which is really disturbing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess Annie's actually more interesting. I was like, let's have more of Annie Glenn instead of John.
Yeah, yeah. She is more interesting. Way better performance.
Yeah,
Beautifully cast.
yeah.
I just. Uh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Will. I think I ruined the right stuff for you, because now
Uh,
whenever I watch an episode, John's on screen. You're like the mannequin himself. Ah,
nah,
oh man,
uh,
that is it for us tonight. Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
yes, you can find me at Will M Polk. That's WILLMPOLK.
You can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, geek out. You're welcome.